Okay. Hello, this is Viviette White at the Allegra Westbrooks Regional Library, and I'm so happy today that we have a person who's taken flight in a lot of ways. Not only is he a pilot, he was a captain for the Air Force, and he also owns his own I would say, a charter service and flight school. It's like an empire. Please, everybody, welcome Joseph Williams, Jr. So glad to have you today. I really am. One of the things I want to ask you, how did you become a pilot? Like, what got you interested in flying?
When I was a kid, like literally 6 years old, I lived in Chicago, and we lived literally right down the street from O'Hare International Airport. And I was sitting on the back porch with my dad one day, I don't know what it was that we were doing, but I was just watching planes fly. And I said, Dad, I want to fly. I want to fly one of those one day. And from that day forward, it seemed like he and my mom just were singularly focused on getting me to become a pilot at some point in my future, because that was something I expressed to do. And from that day, books would show up in the house that were about planes. It didn't have to necessarily be about aviation, but if it said something about planes or a flight or anything like that, it would just show up in the house, and I would read it from cover to cover, just trying to get more knowledge on what it was that I wanted to do in my life. And so I knew at an early age that I wanted to fly. And it was really just because, truth be told, there was a American Airlines airplane that was really shiny and silver. And I was like, oh, that's a cool looking airplane. I want to touch it. I want to fly it. And so it was the shiny thing that got my attention. And so I just pursued that.
So how old were you when you first got on a plane? Like, not just as a pilot, but when you got a chance to actually get in a plane and take a trip?
Okay, right, good. So yeah, when I was, again, we lived in Chicago at the time. And so we would travel back and forth. This was the early 70s, late 70s, back and forth to Alabama to visit my grandparents, both of whom which lived in Alabama at the time. So we would fly from Chicago to Atlanta or Chicago to Montgomery, and then get in a car and drive the rest of the way. So I would say I flew quite a bit actually as a kid, maybe 5 or 6 flights a year, just back and forth between Alabama and Georgia and Chicago, just going to places like that. So I don't remember when the first one was, just because I can't remember that far back, but there are pictures of me being in Alabama at the age of 2 that I don't remember. So clearly I was either driving or flying, and I can't imagine that too many parents in that time frame would drive 12, 13 hours with a screaming kid in the car. So it's a lot easier to put them on an airplane. So
yeah. And sometimes today you don't even want a screaming kid in a plane just for a 2-hour flight.
Right. That's true. That's true. But I mean, back when the speed limit was just 55, that's a long, long time to be in a car. So
right. And so were you one of those kids that got on a plane and were introduced to the pilot? Did you ever get those like flight wings? Because I remember as a kid, growing up in New York, we would get flight wings from the pilot if this was like our first trip, or, did you ever get to go in the cockpit to meet the staff? And,
I did. I went up into the cockpit a couple of times. Didn't really get to do anything per se that was groundbreaking, but I did get, the flight attendants were a lot more welcoming, if you will. And so they were the ones that normally gave me wings, the little plastic pilot wings that you're talking about. Yeah, I had 15, 20 sets of those. By the time I was in high school, I had so many that I just don't remember getting all of them, but I would get those every flight, and even get they had the little books that you could color and have the pilot sign. And again, it was a less friendly environment for us back then. So most times the flight attendants would take the book for us and get it signed and bring it back. But I would always get there. I can't remember one single time all the way through high school where I didn't get some wings from flying.
Yeah. One of our guests asked, how old were you when you started your formal education in aviation?
As in, when did I start pilot training?
Started your aviation career?
Okay, so that's a tough question because to me, it formally started when I was a wee tyke. But I think what you're specifically asking is when did I start actually flying and doing the training? And I was already an officer in the U.S. Air Force, so I was in my 20s at that point. But it didn't mean that I hadn't started already. I lived right across the street from Moton Field in Tuskegee, which is home of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Oh, wow.
And so I had two mentors when we moved to Alabama. When I was 9 years old, we moved to Alabama. And like I said before, in an effort to get me to flying, my parents did everything that they could. And so I ended up meeting Chief Alfred Anderson and Colonel Herbert C. Carter, which were both Tuskegee Airmen, and they just took me under their wing. And I never got to fly because it was still kind of expensive at the time. But they did take me out, show me around the airplane, and teach me about what the prop does and how much you should apply braking and things like that. But I never actually got to fly. So my formal education started before I actually started my formal education, if that makes sense. But I was in the Air Force, 23 years old, when I took my first flying lesson on my own. And so I went up and did that. And then just after my son was born in 2000, September of 2000, I started pilot training formally with the United States Air Force. I finished that after 1 year. And then the rest is my story, if you will.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you for your service in the Air Force.
My pleasure.
I checked you out on your webpage, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. You flew one of those KC-135s, the refueling jets. It's not really a jet. It looks like a cruise ship in the air. But can you explain those dynamics? Because I've seen video of planes being refueled, and I'm like, you have to be very precise, very exact. What is that like, being the pilot of one of those?
Okay, so truth be told, full disclosure, up front, we have no idea what's going on back there, to be honest. Because there's somebody else back there that's controlling the pump, and so, if you will. So we're up front flying the airplane, and we have what's called a boom operator, and the boom operator controls the fuel pump, if you will. And so the easiest way to explain how it actually happens is I know we just finished the Winter Olympics, but if you think about the Summer Olympics and they have the 400-meter relay where somebody's running real fast and they say go and they hand them the baton, that's exactly the same process. So the refueling aircraft, F-15, whatever type of aircraft it is, once we see them, they start to follow us, and then they tell us how close they are. And then we match speeds. And so they say, okay, we're doing 350 miles per hour. We slow our speed down to 350 miles per hour. They speed it up to 352, and then they slowly come in behind us. And it's just it seems like it's really fast from the ground because it's 350 miles per hour. But in the air, it's really, you're gaining at 2 miles per hour. And so it's really slow for us. But the dynamics behind it is, it can be a very dynamic situation if it's bumpy, if it's turbulent, it completely changes the dynamic of how the process works. But
I can't even see how like the fuel pump comes out of those KC-135s, and you attach it directly to the fuel opening of the jet flying, like you said. Almost, it's like Mach speed, and you have to kind of catch up and make sure it's attached correctly. And so when you're doing this, is it like during I don't know, is it during battle or is it like prior to approaching an airfield or a strike? Like what was the dynamic like when you were flying and refueling the planes? Is it more like just getting them to their destination?
There are a couple of ways we'd go about doing that business. What mostly happens is, there was a couple of questions in there actually. So I'll start with the back and move back to the forward.
It's just so amazing.
Yeah, I'll go with the most recency of knowledge there. So we trained on it, first of all. So we would have to go up and fly and do the training. So we would do that just like going to basketball practice or football practice. We'd go out and practice how we were going to play. And then we'd go back to Kansas or Hawaii, which is where I was based, or in Florida, and those guys would go back wherever they came from. Sometimes it will be literally across the United States where you're going to go refuel somebody that's from Virginia and you're in California, and you meet up somewhere over Kansas, refuel them, they go play their games, and you go back home. So we would do that. Most times we were doing it for, unfortunately, the military is a war machine. And so we were doing it for the protection of our boundaries, if you will. And so we would inevitably have to take people across the ocean, and that required us to have to refuel them. And so there's hundreds of KC-135s, KC-10s, which are actually bigger than the KC-135, and the KC-46, which is a little bit bigger than the KC-10. And so surprisingly enough, even though our airplane was really big, it was the smallest of the refueling fleet, if you will. But we were actually the most nimble and easiest to move around, which you can imagine is like the difference between a sports car and an 18-wheeler. So, so that's what it was. But we would frequently leave the United States with 10 to 12 fighter aircraft or bomber aircraft and go over to the Persian Gulf or wherever the conflict of the year was, if you will, and deploy our troops that way. And so it would take however long it takes you to fly in a commercial airplane, it would take us that long to fly because we're having to slow down to refuel. But we carried quite a bit of fuel. We had 185,000 pounds of fuel on board.
Wow.
Our airplane, and the KC-10 can carry 310,000 pounds. And so you can imagine if you have two of those airplanes flying across the ocean, that's over 500,000 pounds of fuel that is going to be put into other airplanes that are going to go. And so we kept some of that fuel for ourselves because, of course, we have to fly. And so we have to have that fuel also. So we would keep fuel for ourselves, but most of it we would offload to other aircraft. To give you all a picture of what it looked like inside, if you were to get in a regular airplane just today, there's seats in it. We had seats in our airplane too. The fuel tanks are just like they are in your cars. They're underneath the floorboards and in the wings and things. So there are no fuel tanks. It's not a big bottle that's in the airplane like this. It's just the fuel tanks are spread out through the airplane because we also use the aircraft for cargo and personnel transportation. So when I say carry the troops, I'm not only speaking of the fighter aircraft and the bomber aircraft. We almost always had personnel in the back of the airplane on the order of 50 to 60 per airplane at a time.
Wow. That's a big crew. And it's kind of like a huge task to man. And you were the pilot of this plane?
Right.
Incredible. That is awesome service. I was going to say, bring us more up to date now, because your missions overseas and flying for the United States Air Force has brought you now to own, and you're founder and CEO of Herald Charters. Can you take us through that journey? What did you do to become the owner of your own flight school and charter service?
I did a lot of praying. But when I was in Hawaii, this was one of my last Air Force assignments. I lived in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I was taking my daughter and son to school one day. And after I dropped them off, I was on the way back to work in Honolulu. The airport, the Air Force Base in Hawaii, is a joint air base with the international airport there. And I was going back to work, and it was originally supposed to be a cargo airline. Herald Charter was going to be a cargo airline to do a feeder service for FedEx and UPS.
Mm.
And as I was going around the corner to the base, I had an epiphany from God himself. And he's, hey, there's always going to be cargo, but who's going to take care of my mission? And so that was the genesis behind Herald Charters. We decided to, at that point, pivot and go from a cargo-based airline to a missionary charter, which completely revamped our business plan. But it was really a function of having been on 8 to 9 missions at that point, where I was able, because the Air Force provided me a fairly stable life and a sizable amount of stability in life, I was able to just call up Delta or United or American and say, hey, I want to fly over to this place. How much is a ticket? And I'll pay for my ticket. That was very uncommon for missionaries and aid workers. And so often we would get to the ground on the location, and the aid workers or the other missionaries had to raise the money to buy the ticket to get to where they were going. And so it was somewhat heartbreaking to see that, because here it is, a war-fighting machine has provided me the capability to be able to just put money down, but this person who wants to do God's work has to raise the money to go. And so that's what started us moving towards Herald Charters. And so what you see as Herald Charters today was really from that moment back in time. And so what we did was we were trying to move people and missionaries and aid workers from point A to point B and get to their destinations, which is great. But I'm currently a pilot with American Airlines also. And you may not have heard, we've been canceling flights, and this isn't just American, it's all of the airlines have been canceling flights because they just don't have enough crew members. And this includes flight attendants, pilots, mechanics. They don't have enough crew members to actually do the job that they're supposed to do. So about 5 years ago, when I met my current wife, Jacqueline, who's actually out on assignment right now, we were talking, and she said, we should start an aviation education to bridge the gap. And I said, okay, how does that work? And she said, well, if you can teach them over here before they get done with elementary school and high school, what it is that they need to do, and then provide them a job to get the training from the time they finish high school until the time they're ready to go, then you've created a pipeline for the airlines to keep families safe all the time when those pilots go to fly. And so that's what we did. And so we took the Herald Charters piece and kind of slid it over here and created the aviation education, which is the Wings of Dreamers program, which is on the website that you talked about. And so the Wings of Dreamers program is specifically designed to catch your younger students from elementary, middle school, high school, get them trained in either aviation education. They can be a mechanic. We have a partnership with the Aviation Institute of Maintenance here in Charlotte, where if somebody's afraid of flying or afraid of heights, but you really want to contribute, you don't have to be a pilot. You don't have to be a flight attendant. You can go be a mechanic or do something mechanical based with the aircraft and still contribute to what it is that you'd like to do. And work towards that goal. And the whole point is to just give our students an opportunity to see that there's more to life than what you just see on television and what you hear on the radio. There are other things that you can achieve, and it's not too difficult to do it. You just have to want to start. And so we're trying to give everybody an opportunity to move from point A to point B without having to have a gap in employment, if you will, because everybody's not going to be LeBron James, and everybody's not going to be whoever the latest, greatest singer is.
Exactly.
somebody's going to have to man the airplanes and do the other work that moves those people to those locations. And so why not you? And so that's what we want to give our students an opportunity to be able to do that.
And that's why I love the mission of Herald Charters. It's like you're heralding all of these great jobs in aviation, especially for young Black men and women. And I love the initiative because, you know, there's been a big push for STEM programs. And
right.
A lot of kids, you know, they'll look at it in school as, oh, it's just math and science. And we have to do more than that. You know, it's not just the, like, you know, learning the addition and algebra. You know, there's big time planning when you're talking about engineering and the back function of airlines, you know, how it's run. And like you said, everyone's not meant to be a rock star pilot or the best of it. It's like everyone on the ground that gets these planes up in the air has a big contribution to aviation. Right. And did you also do the groundwork as far as, I know you were a pilot, but did you do a lot of background tasks to find out more about the plane?
Yes, I did. So before I became a pilot, I was in the Air Force for 4 years. Before I became a pilot, I was in the Air Force for a total of 15 years, but the first 4 years I was an air traffic control officer. And while I was doing that, I was able to learn so much about aviation related to airplanes that you just literally, not even joking, you don't get in pilot training. You just don't understand it because they don't talk about it from that perspective. And it was just a unique position to be able to sit and listen and watch and learn about what my passion was from outside of the passion, if you will. And so it was great because there are things, for example, that you may know about your car just from standing outside of it and looking at it. But when you're inside the car, you can't see it. Like, with the exception of looking at the hood, you don't know what color your car is when you're inside of it. And so those are just some things like that. So I learned a lot about aviation without actually being in an aircraft. And that actually is most of flying, truthfully. I don't know how to explain it any simpler than that. It's just, I could take the four of you on this chat right now up to the Concord Airport, put you in an airplane and teach you how to fly in less than 6 weeks. But the bulk of your knowledge about what it is that you're supposed to do in an airplane comes from things you already know. For example, if it starts storming right now, lightning and thunder, are you going to just go outside? No, you're going to go inside and you're going to wait. You're going to avoid it, right? It's the same things we do in airplanes. And so it's just taking that knowledge and making it practical to what it is that you do. So that's why if you're at the airport and you're waiting on a flight and it's lightning within 5 miles, nobody moves on the airport because the airplanes are made out of aluminum and metal so they can get struck by lightning. It doesn't hurt the airplane, but if you happen to be touching that piece of metal at that moment on the ground, there's an issue. And so it's just things like that. So I learned a lot about aviation outside of the aircraft, and I did a lot of research on the type of airplanes that I wanted to fly. I originally wanted to fly fighters, but God had a different mission for me. And so tankers was where I ended up flying. And I understand now why that was, because fighter pilots have a different mentality, and they view the world a little bit differently. And so while I understand how they view the world, it just wasn't my point in life to be that type of person. And so also being a tanker pilot and now an airline pilot with American Airlines and having my own company allows me and affords me the capability to be able to reach out and say, hey, we probably should change to this type of aircraft because this type of aircraft is more conducive to teaching and it's more useful for students and how they learn today. The airplanes I grew up with, most of the dials looked like this, where it was just numbers and punching keypads, but now
Yeah, old
airplanes,
remote
right,
control.
right.
Yeah.
But now airplanes look like this.
It's
And
digital,
so,
exactly.
right, right. And
Yeah.
so we're actually in the process now of switching out from this to an
Mhm.
airplane that looks like this. And so we actually don't have an airplane right now, but because we're getting a digital one
Mhm.
for our students, so that it'll make the process easier, because there's no point for us to pull our hair out and have the students stressed
Mhm.
about learning this when it's not even relevant for them. I
Right.
mean, this controller only works for that TV and that's
Mhm.
it. But if I can
Mhm.
teach a student how to use this in every airplane,
Mhm.
it's much more effective. And so, plus it allows us to be able to help the student with their transition period. If you can say, yeah, your phone is essentially the same way you're going to fly the airplane. You touch this and you touch this and you touch this and this and this, and the airplane's ready to go.
Yeah.
If you're having to teach them about antiquated equipment, you've lost a student.
Yeah.
Because if they can't go home and touch that same thing, they're not going to stick with the program. That's what
Exactly.
we.
It's like you're teaching about a prehistoric
Right,
vehicle,
right.
and everything's up to date. As you can see with cell phones and television sets, everything has been very much updated with new computers. And speaking of your students, you have the Herald's Wings of Dreamers program.
Yes, ma'am.
What are the steps that the students have to go through to get their pilot's license? Like, how old do you have to be to join the program?
You can join the program at any age. The problem isn't the student. The problem is, surprisingly enough, the government. And so
Oh,
they won't allow students to learn to fly, or I shouldn't say that. They won't allow students to get their private pilot's license until they're 16 years old. I get
oh.
it. It makes sense. It's a safety caution, a safety
It's kind of
precaution,
like
which
when you
makes sense.
get a learner's permit to drive a car. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right. And so because of that 16-year age limit, if you roll it back 4 years, which is normally how long it takes to progress through a program, if you're paying for it yourself over time, it takes about 2 to 3 years because of just the timing. And most students don't come every day like I did in pilot training. It took me a year in pilot training, and that was my job, just training every day. So if you're paying for it or your parents are paying for it, you don't go every day. You go when you can afford to go. And so if you roll it back from 16 to 4 years prior, 12 is typically the best starting age. But we have programs that are literally designed to help first graders, second graders, third graders get involved, and just start teaching them about the simplistic way of flying. So for example, one of our first classes for kindergartners that we teach at the Boys and Girls Club is how to make a paper airplane. Very simple, right? It's something that every kid is probably going to do that anyway at some point in life, right? So now we're going to teach you how to make a great paper airplane that you can actually fly. And don't do it in your classroom, but if you do, know that your airplane is probably going to be the best because we've taught you how to make a good paper airplane. And then we move on to first and second grade, and where we start talking about weather and having the students bring their parents into the system, meaning, hey, mom, I need to make a paper airplane, or hey, dad, I need to make a paper airplane, and then to go outside and fly it on 4 different types of days. I need to fly it on a day where it's above 80 degrees. I need to fly it on a day where it's 50 degrees. I need to fly it on a day where it's cloudy. I need to try to fly it on a day where it's raining. And those will help that student understand how weather affects the airplane. And so we just have a stair-step process like that. That's a STEM program that's accredited, and it moves through with what the school systems move through. And so any age really can come into the program because we have programs set up for specific age groups.
And have you, as a part of the journey for these young students, have you partnered with the local school system here in Charlotte, or any of the other like private or charter schools? Have you teaching? I know your schedule is probably tight because you said you fly for American Airlines, you run your own company. Like, when would you have time? But have you ever thought of that as being a partnership with the schools?
We actually did reach out back in 2019, just before COVID kind of closed the world down. We reached out to the Charlotte Mecklenburg school system to see if they would be interested in bringing us in as kind of a after school program, if you will, to just kind of see how it would fit into the school system program. We were making some headway, and then COVID took over, and everything just kind of fell apart. So I haven't reached back out because we're really just starting to spin back up. But if you all have a way for us to do it, we'd be more than happy to come into the library system and into the Charlotte Mecklenburg school system and start helping get our folks into the airplane and into the aviation system. We'd be more than happy to.
I think it would be a great STEM program, especially for the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library, and the fact that summer is coming up and a lot of students will be out of school and looking for things to do. It would be a great course to take with their, with their summer programming, as well as after school programs. And I know there are a whole bunch of adults who would enjoy taking
I saw that.
Yeah, there would be plenty of adults. I mean, I'm peaked. I'm not one that I would say, oh, let me learn how to fly a plane, but I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who would love to learn how to fly a plane. Now, are there programs that you assist with that would give scholarships to students or people who looking for flight lessons? And
yes, there are. I want to answer one quick question, and I'll come back to that because that's a pretty good point that you make. Someone asked, are the skills one needs for piloting airplanes similar to those needed to pilot drones? So thank you, Shanta, for the question. And yes, they're very similar because the FAA has deemed that in order to fly a drone, you have to get a drone's license, which we can help you with. And the skills are similar in as much as, up makes the drone go up, makes the airplane go up. There are some things that you won't learn in the drone course that you will learn in a pilot's course, but everything you learn in a pilot's course covers the drone course. And so I know that that's some corollary in algebra or something. I can't remember which one it is, but if A plus B equals C, then C must be the sum of A. I can't remember which one it is.
I know it's
it's that. And so, so the skills are similar. If you're interested in the drone program only, then there's certainly room for that. We have a partner that does drones. We have drones. We're opening up our own drone stuff because it's much easier to take that course than it is to get somebody up to Concord or down to Rock Hill or wherever. It's easier to train somebody on a drone than it is to get them out to the airport and teach them how to fly planes. But yes, back to the question, we do help with scholarships and aid. That was another reason for the Wings of Dreamers program, truthfully. So my wife took what I was doing with Herald Charters and said, I want to create an aviation education program based off of Herald Charters. So Herald Charters is the parent company. And what Herald Charters does, it says, okay, it will cost $800 to fly from here to Costa Rica for a mission trip. And that's because you have to pay the pilots, you have to pay the flight attendants, you have to pay the cost of fuel, you have to pay the seat miles, you have to pay all of that. What Herald does is take all of that information and cuts it down to bare minimums. Because our pilots are volunteers, you don't have to pay them. Most of our fuel will be paid for already in the aircraft. We actually are trying to get donated so that there's no overhead costs associated with having to pay a lease on an aircraft. And so the cost of your ticket to Costa Rica is going to be the cost of your ticket. It's not going to be because you're paying somebody over here this much and you're paying this much. It's going to be a significantly reduced amount. And so my wife wanted to create the Aviation Wings of Dreamers program with the same idea in mind, because for me growing up, it took a long time to save $5,000 to learn to fly. Like I said, I was 23 years old by the time I got all of that money saved. And truthfully, I hadn't saved properly, oh, I like these shoes, or I want that PlayStation, so I was like pulling money from it. But what the Wings of Dreamers program's aim is to reduce the amount of cost associated with training. And so she wanted to take as much as 35% off the training costs. And so that's what we are doing. We're taking that much off the training costs, and that we've done that through the same thing by our pilots are volunteering their time. So instead of paying your average pilot course of $136 an hour to train, we've reduced that down to $70, which comes right to you as a student. So we do have, but there are scholarships out there that you can do if you aren't interested in our programs, or if you don't live in the area, or if you find yourself in the summer down in Florida or out in Denver somewhere. There are scholarships that are available where you can transfer that money to wherever it is that you're training.
Yeah. And I'd like to show everybody your website. It's heraldcharters.com. And I hope that you all can take a look at what is going on your website. And you update it pretty often, giving people ideas of what's going on in your company, correct?
I do. So the latest change, which isn't posted because we aren't completely done with it, is the, I see here, the Wings of Dreamers, thinkific.com.
Yes.
So what we are doing, we're actually in the process of breaking out that curriculum because it was just one giant conglomeration of student work. And so, I have my sister who is 40 go in and say, oh, I'm going to register for this course. And my niece who is 7 registered for the same course. And they were going through the course, and my niece was like, I don't understand what this means. What are you talking about? And so we're now breaking it out, because as a 7-year-old, you don't care what makes the Mountain Dew. You just care that the Mountain Dew is red and that it's good. You don't care how the chemicals work. And so we're breaking that course out and making it so that kindergartners can understand it at a kindergartner level, and your 40-year-old students can understand it at their level. So you won't see that update on the page, but you will see it if you get into the Wings of Dreamers Thinkific when you go to the actual lessons. So if you click on those lessons in there, you'll see that they're actually broken out now. Instead of it being just one giant, here's a lesson, start here. Right. There's far more options. The Herald Charter's charter side website, I update that one personally. And so when there are changes, I'll put those out there. So if you're subscribed to it, when the change comes up, you'll get the change notification almost immediately. And from time to time, I'll be flying and my wife will say, hey, I just put this on the charter site. And I won't get to see it because I'm flying. And so when I land, I'll see it. So you guys will most likely have a lot of information before I get that information sometimes. And so that's how it works.
Well, there's a lot of information on your webpage. The Wings of Dreamers program I find amazing because you focus on minorities and women. And there's like so much focus now on inclusion and getting everyone involved, especially Black people involved in careers in aviation. What nugget of, I guess, promise or an idea that you can give our audience today about how important it is to see us represented in aviation?
Ooh, wow.
I know that's kind of a deep question.
That's a loaded question. That is a loaded question. I'll tell you why I like the idea of the Wings of Dreamers program and Herald Charters is because and this kind of answers the question, I think. I like the idea because if you were to leave you wherever it is that you are right now and go to the local mall, are you going to see a specific type of person, or are you going to see a conglomeration of people? And it may be, if you grew up like I did in Tuskegee, you may go to the mall and see 80% Black people, but you're also going to see white people. You're going to see all mixed races in there. You're going to see all mixed genders in there. And so I like the idea of the Wings of Dreamers program because it gives everybody an opportunity to reach a level of something that has historically not been attainable for us. And so, and when I say us, I'm including women and minorities in that group, just because I am part of that group also. And so for me, it's more about making every career field eligible for every group. And I want to be able to walk into the airport and see it not be a, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want it to be a, oh, look, there's a Black pilot. Oh, look, there's a female Black pilot. Wow.
Right.
I don't want that to be the exception. I want that to be the norm.
Right.
And so, just like you can walk into your average, and this is, trust me, I want it to be, I'll say this, I'll preface this statement with this. I want it to be a national basketball player. I want to be an NBA basketball player growing up. If you walk into any NBA arena, you're going to see all kinds of people, period. I want that same experience when you walk into an airplane. And so I don't want people to think that it's unusual to think, oh, there are Black female pilots, or there are Hispanic male pilots, or I want that to just go away, because right now that's the case, and it just continues to hold the barrier in place for those of us who are trying to get through, because the issue is, well, there aren't that many of you, so you guys are the exception. And that's not the way it should be.
I love up here on your webpage. It says, no shame in starting small if you're laying the foundation for something great. And I must say, you have laid the foundation for many people. Being a pilot, a Black pilot, and like you said, it's like, it shouldn't be something uncommon to see. And you're doing the work that is affecting the future. So when you step on an American airline plane and see you in the cockpit, I want to know, do you get like, oh my goodness, he's Black?
All the time. And yeah, it happens a lot. And my wife was actually surprised when we met. When we first met, she didn't know I was a pilot. And then a couple of days later, I was like, oh, I'm a pilot for ExpressJet. And she's like, what? You're a pilot? And so if my wife, who is commensurate age with me, doesn't think that's the case, then it's incredible to see how often it happens, though. Actually, it happened my very last flight on Saturday, coming back from New Orleans to Charlotte. We landed in Charlotte. I opened the door and I was greeting all the passengers and telling them thanks for flying. And a little boy, he must have been 7 or 8 years old. His name was Caleb, because his mom was yelling at him to not run up the jet bridge. He points at me and he was like, "Mom, look, a Black pilot." It wasn't embarrassing, but it was embarrassing because, now he focused everybody on me, right? Not a big deal, but it happens a lot. And so I just want that. I don't want that to go away. I would prefer that it did, though, because it shouldn't be, like Shanta said down here, break the visual that only white men are pilots. And so it shouldn't be surprising, especially I just don't want it to be a surprise for our folks minorities, women, underrepresented youth, it shouldn't be a surprise that there's something that you can do that you haven't thought of. It shouldn't be a surprise that you see somebody doing something that is not historically what it is. I want them to be able to say, I can achieve that. I just didn't want to do that. I elected to go over here and do healthcare, or I wanted to do something different, or I want to be a civil engineer. I just didn't want to be a pilot. I knew that I could do it. I just didn't want to. I want that to be the case, instead of, I had no idea that this was available to me. I thought only this group of people or this subset of people could do it. And so that's kind of the genesis behind the Wings of Dreamers program.
Right. And I see another question in the chat. Do you have a favorite plane?
Ooh, Aaliyah, can you be a little more specific? Like a plane, like, are you asking if there's a plane that I would just want to fly all the time, or a plane that I want to fly that's not attainable because it's beyond me, like it's in my past? My favorite airplane, while you respond, my favorite airplane of all time is the F-15E, and it's a fighter aircraft. And I grew up thinking I was going to fly that airplane, and then I get to the Air Force and they're like, oh yeah, you can fly that, or you can fly this. And I had a family, so I chose heavies. So a plane that I would fly all the time. It would probably be a Gulfstream or Bombardier. So the business jets, you hear about them in the song. Somebody, they call them a G6.
Yes.
Yeah, a G6 is my favorite airplane because it can go pretty much anywhere in the world on one tank of fuel, and you can take your family members and your loved ones with you. And so that's where I would want to go. I would want to fly that. Yeah. If you guys can help me get one of those, we can all together.
And I think, you know what, you can attain it because you've attained so much in your life. And as I would say, a young man as yourself, you have many more years to go. You have more years to attain. You will get that G6. You will get the extra flying hours just to enjoy, because you've done so much for the community, and you continue to, and you aspire and inspire other people. And I really appreciate your conversation with us today. Before we go, are there any more questions for our pilot, Joseph Williams?
So while they come up with questions, I've put in the chat box here my information. So if you guys have a question or something specific, you can send me an email. That's my phone number. That's my personal phone number, not my business phone, because I don't take this when I go out with American Airlines, because
I believe no texting and flying, right?
Right.
We don't want that. It's like focus on getting us to our destination.
Right.
This pilot off his phone.
Right. What is he doing? Isn't he supposed to be landing right now?
Right.
So, but I left my number in case you all have specific questions you want to ask and you just aren't able to wait for an email response. I do try to check my emails at least 5 or 6 times a day. I'm on there almost hourly, but my cell phone, that's pretty much hidden me right in my pocket. So if you have a question about, hey, I'm at the airport, American is telling me this, is that a true statement? Or my cell phone is there for you all to help, for me to help you guys out. Or if you have questions about how to get into the Herald program or anything like that, my information is there. If you all sign up for the Wings of Dreamers program, I'll get notified almost instantly, and I'll give you access to those programs. If you look around on there, there's some free information on there, and those are just, of course, it's just free information. It's exactly what it is. So you can download that at any time. Most of the Herald Charters program, the Wings of Dreamers information is, what's the word that you all use? What is it now? Prerequisite. So you have to start at the beginning and before you can get to the next one. But if there's something that you want to see to be certain that this is something that you want to pursue long term, and you want me to open up something for you to take a look at specifically, just let me know. I'll go in and open it up for you for a couple of hours or a day or so. And then after that day expires, of course, the information will close. But like I said, I'm available to you all. My wife's not here. The Wings of Dreamers program is our baby, but that's her deal. If I start trying to make changes over there, we're going to end up having a conversation. So, but if you want me to change something on Herald Charter side, I'm all in. If you want something on the Herald Wings of Dreamers side, that's going to take a few hours of negotiation with the bride.
Now we have two more questions left before we leave. One is, I've never flown anywhere. Do you have any advice for me? I'm kind of scared.
Oh, okay. So,
I'm sure there are a lot of people who've never flown and they apprehensive about the flight part. So what advice would you give someone who's never flown before?
I'm not really certain what the apprehensive of flying is, the apprehension behind it, but I do understand it. And so to completely take the barrier down for you and help you to relax a little bit, I am afraid of heights.
You see,
right. So I'm afraid of heights. Like I will go up to the top of the Empire State Building. I'll go up to the top of any building. As long as my feet are on something, I'm okay. But if you say, look over the edge, like we went to the Grand Canyon and I was like, oh, that's great. It looks beautiful, but I'm not getting any closer because that fear of falling is a real deal. And so I can understand that. And so, but as long as something's under my feet, I can feel stabilized. I'm okay. As long as I'm actually in control of the airplane, I'm okay. I think what most people's fear is, I don't know what your specific fear is or why you are apprehensive about it. And it's really immaterial to me because I want you to be able to step beyond that. And so I would tell you that if it's because you're afraid of heights, most pilots are, surprisingly enough. If it's because you don't like the turbulence, then I'll explain to you really quick what turbulence is. Turbulence is God's way, if you will, of letting you know that he's helping the airplane fly because the wind blows, right? And that's what creates the turbulence. There's nothing wrong with the airplane. It's just the wind changes direction. So when you're flying along in your airplane, I'll do it like this, and the wind, and this is my Tuskegee Airman F-22, by the way. I made this in a local Charlotte paint place or whatever you call it. Clay place. So if you're flying along, just imagine this is level. You're flying along and the wind is coming from this direction right here like this, right? So it's going across the wings like this. If that wind changes to right here, the airplane is going to respond in kind because the wind has moved, right? So now instead of the wind blowing from this, blowing the airplane like this, it's blowing it like this. And so the airplane is just responding to the wind. That's what turbulence is. Of course, turbulence in thunderstorms is not a good deal anyway. So that's never going to feel good. Even if you're sitting on the ground in the airplane, the wind is making the airplane move. But turbulence is really, truth be told, turbulence is your friend in an airplane because it's your way of knowing that the wind is blowing and helping the airplane stay afloat, stay in the air, if you will. What most likely happens since you've never flown, I don't want to tell you statistically speaking, airplanes are the safest way of travel because that doesn't mean anything to you if you've never done it. But airplanes are hugely safe. Pilots are well trained to handle events in the event something comes up. Most airplanes that you fly commercially have 2 engines. And I'll tell you all this, and I'll wait for the surprise later. Most airplanes can fly with just 1 engine. So if 1 engine fails, the airplane is completely capable of still flying. The reason we go back when an engine fails is because why fly with 1 engine when you can have 2? So let's just go back, get another airplane and fly with 2. But the airplanes are designed to fly with 1 engine. They put two on there for safety factor, and then we fly with two engines. And so it happens quite often in the military where you will actually train to fly with only one engine so that you get accustomed to doing it. So if you could think of it, Aaliyah, can you tell me real quick, do you have a driver's license? Or you can hit me with a thumbs up or something. Okay. Have you ever ridden a bike? I'll keep going on with it though. If you have, okay, so your bike tires have air in them, right? They don't have to be 100% filled with air for the bike to still work, right? As long as you're able to pedal, the bike will still work, even if the tire isn't 100% filled. It's better if they're filled, but they don't have to be 100% filled for the bike to still work. It's the same concept with airplane engines. It's better if you have two, but if you have one, it still works. So I hope somehow I've alleviated some of your stress and concern about flying. If you do find yourself at the airport getting ready to take a flight and you're still concerned, as soon as you get on the airplane, tell the flight attendant or tell the gate agent, hey, I would like to talk to the pilot. I'm nervous about flying. Can I talk to them so they can give me some pointers? And we do it all the time. I did it to a lady coming out of Phoenix because she was concerned about flying and she didn't like turbulence. And so I explained to her what turbulence was. She was a teacher actually, and I showed her how turbulence works, and she was perfectly fine for the rest of the flight. We landed and she thanked me for helping her understand what turbulence was. And I don't know if she's still flying now, but I know that she flew that one flight and she said she had no issues.
Well, that was a great explanation. And I know that cleared up a lot for everyone because turbulence is something that we always are concerned about. And they make such a big deal when you get on a plane.
Right.
And I just want to point to one of our last questions today about how to support your program and advocate for you to be in Charlotte Mecklenburg schools or other school systems.
Oh, that's a great question. More events like this where we could speak freely with the school system and just show them and hands-on with how the process works would be probably the easiest way, short of actually sitting in the office with them. This type of venue would probably be the easiest way. So if we can have another one where you can invite somebody from the school system and we can explain to them how the program works, that would be effective. Or another way is to send them the Wings of Dreamers website and just ask them, say, hey, just log in, just try it and see if you think this is something that students would be interested in. And I think, I just know from experience from being in the Air Force, and it's been true here at American Airlines also, that money talks. And if you can tell somebody, I can save you money, that definitely talks. And so if you tell them, hey, we found a program where, it normally costs $8,000 to get your private pilot's license, where you're paying almost only $4,000, almost half. I think that would be a lot more palatable for them than, hey, there's this STEM program where you get your private pilot's license, and oh yeah, by the way, they save you 50% of the cost. I think that would be a lot more palatable. At least it'll perk their ears a little bit. But you can also let them know that we are STEM certified, a STEM certified program.
Well, I appreciate all the information that you've given us today. Everyone, thank you for joining us. This was a treat. I've learned so much, and I know we all can agree that aviation is the way to go. It's another job that, yes, we want to see ourselves apply to and be accepted in and thrive forward. I mean, I tip my hat to you.
Thank you.
Captain, Captain America, but no, this is Captain Joseph Williams Jr. And I appreciate your time. Thank you everyone for joining us, and look forward to more programs with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate